God is a different kind of universe without one. As a sort of slightly facetious hypothetical example, take miracles and imagine that forensic archaeologists found DNA evidence to show that Jesus didn't have a biological father, was born of a virgin. Suppose that that evidence was published in the journal Nature or Science. Can you imagine a theologian in the world who would say, no, separate magisteria, scientific evidence has nothing to do with religion, they're completely separate, we have to discount that? Of course they wouldn't. If there was any scientific evidence in favor of religion, then it would be trumpeted to the skies. The non-overlapping magisteria doctrine that you've talked about is appealing to religious people only because there is no scientific evidence in favor of religion. I think it's a cop-out. I think it's cowardly. At best, it's politically expedient.
One more question along those lines before we finish up. If science and religion are not compatible, if the warfare hypothesis is true and they are at war, and the belief in God is just a delusion, and you're right about all of this, what's to be done about all the religious believers in the world? Is it just going to be a battle to the death, science versus religion, and the best man wins?
Well, I hope nothing is ever a battle to the death. I hope it will be done in the form of civilized argument using evidence. And it's not an argument that I would expect to win in terms of a democratic vote, by the way. I'm afraid that would be much too optimistic. I would also like to add one more thing, is that when we were talking about the sort of sensible, middle-of-the-road religious people, there's a great spectrum of those, of course. There are those who believe in evolution but still believe in the doctrines of some particular religion, such as Christianity. They believe in the redemption by the crucifixion, the resurrection, and so on, which are sort of miraculous beliefs. But there are others who are often physicists or other scientists who don't have any truck with that sort of thing, but nevertheless do believe in some sort of intelligence, some sort of vast cosmic intelligence at the basis of the whole of the universe. I do have a lot more respect for them. For one thing, they're a lot brighter than I am, and one has to respect that. But I would be prepared to argue with them, but I do think that that's very different from belief in some particular religion with miracles and with prayer and with forgiveness of sins and all the things that go with, say, Christianity or Islam or Judaism. And it's awfully easy to listen to a physicist who's making a very, very sophisticated case for a deep spirit at the base of the universe and think, oh, well, he's just talking about Christianity. No, he is not talking about Christianity. He's talking about something far grander, far more profound, something that perhaps physicists of 1,000 years' time may give a naturalistic explanation to. I think it's very pernicious to confuse that sort of spirituality, which sort of sounds vaguely religious, with the particular beliefs that we associate with named religions of history and persisting into today.
Richard, I really appreciate the discussion. Let me end by asking, if people read your book, they decide that God does not exist, they want to escape religion, what can they do? What can people do when they're persuaded by your argument?
Well, they can talk to their friends, they can have nice, lively discussions, they can have lively arguments with those who haven't made that decision. If they have problems with their families, then they can talk reasonably and nicely, and maybe they'll convert their families too. I'm probably sounding terribly Pollyannaish and naive about that. They can write their own books, they can join humanist, secularist societies, they can get on with living the only life they'll ever live and enjoying it and trying to bring light and hope to the rest of the world.
Thank you very much for being on Point of Inquiry, Richard.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
You've seen the headlines. Bill seeks to protect students from liberal bias. The right time for an Islamic reformation. Kansas School Board redefined science. These stories sum up the immense challenge facing those of us who defend rational thinking, science, and secular values. What one advisor to the Bush administration dismissed as the reality-based community. Who could have imagined that reality would need defenders? The educational and advocacy work of the Center for Inquiry is more essential than ever, and your support is more essential than ever. Show your commitment to science, reason, and secular values by becoming a friend of the Center today. Whether you are interested in the work of SciCop and Skeptical Inquirer magazine, the Council for Secular Humanism and Free Inquiry magazine, the Commission for Scientific Medicine, or Center for Inquiry on campus, by becoming a friend of the Center, you'll help strengthen our impact. If you're just learning about CFI, take a look at our website, www.centerforinquiry.net. We host regional and international conferences, college courses, and nationwide campus outreach. You'll also find out about our new representation at the United Nations and important national media appearances. We cannot pursue these projects without your help. Please become a friend of the Center today by calling 1-800-818-7071 or visiting www.centerforinquiry.net. We look forward to working with you to enlarge the reality-based community.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Point of Inquiry. Join us next week for another discussion with one of the leading lights of the day. To get involved with an online conversation about today's episode with Richard Dawkins, go to www.cfi-forums.org. There's a vibrant online community where you can thrash things out with people of like or different minds. Views expressed on Point of Inquiry don't necessarily reflect the views of the Center for Inquiry nor its affiliated organizations. Questions and comments on today's show can be sent to feedback@pointofinquiry.org or by visiting our website, pointofinquiry.org. Point of Inquiry is produced by Thomas Donnelly and recorded at the Center for Inquiry in Amherst, New York. Executive producer is Paul Kurtz. Point of Inquiry's music is composed for us by Emmy Award-winning Michael Whalen. Contributors to today's show include Debbie Goddard and Sarah Jordan. I'm your host, DJ Grothe.